and gentlemen, it's the Mythicist Milwaukee Show, podcasting live every Sunday from the Grand Avenue Mall, the Bucket Works location. I'm your host, Rob Moore. With me, as always, Brian Kester. What's going on, Brian?
Hey, I'm excited to be here on Ishtar. I mean Easter.
Happy Easter to you, man. Do you celebrate?
Well, hey, I'm here. We're celebrating. We got Hemant.
We're breathing every day. Every Sunday's a celebration that we're still alive. Yes, and on the line, of course, with us tonight is one of our guests at the Myth Information Conference coming up, as we've been lining them up to hype it in front of the conference here in a couple of weeks. He's the friendly atheist, Hemant Mehta. Say hi, Hemant.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being on. I wanted to ask you, why can't we get an N in your last name so that the two names are anagrams of each other? Every time I look at it, it bugs me. I'm like, can't I just rename him Hemant Mehta so that it works out?
I've heard it all. Don't worry. I've had so many mispronunciations that nothing even phases me anymore. So
I'm a guy who likes to get to the root of the problem anyway. So I've always wondered, what is your ethnicity?
Yeah.
What kind of name is that? Where are you from?
Indian. My parents were born and raised there, and I was born and raised outside of Chicago.
So they gave you a funny name, but you're just a Yank now, and
that's it.
And a full-time atheist as of fairly recently, right? How long has that been since you got to quit?
I actually left. Yeah, I left my day job in August, and so I've been doing this full time since
14? So
yeah,
pretty recently.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm no longer teaching. It's very weird.
I bet. Is it working out? Did it feel like you're jumping out of a plane without a parachute a little bit, or?
You know what? I wouldn't have left if I thought it was a complete parachute, like just a fall from a plane. Like I kind of knew what I was doing when I left, but it does take a little getting used to, not kind of setting my own schedule. You know, it's different, but it's a good different. It's something I chose. It's something I wanted to do. So so far so good.
Well, congratulations to you for it. You're a hero of mine. It's what I want to do and be able to quit my day job and work on something that we're really passionate about. All of us here are here every Sunday volunteering because it means so much to us, and we can see. I mean,
no, I hear you. I was in that same boat for several years where, like, I did this as a hobby, and it's a blast, and I love it. And it got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I think if I want to take this risk and try to do this, it kind of has to happen now. And you know what? I still have like a fallback. If it doesn't work, my teaching certificate is still good for a little while, for a few more years. So I have that option there. But I figured might as well give it a shot now, and let's see if this works.
Well, we'll do what we can to help you. We definitely want to promote you. We like what you have to say.
You're a lifelong American, but are you a lifelong atheist, or how did you come to atheism?
No, became an atheist around like 14, freshman year of high school. That's when I first started asking myself questions and like trying to figure out the answers to these things that I can't believe that I had not thought about before. And I think it probably took a month or two between first having these questions and calling myself an atheist. So, I was probably 14 or so, and then it was slow going in terms of coming out to people that I knew.
Really? So
your parents raised you, you were Hindu, you were Christian?
Jain, actually.
Jain, okay.
So it's Jain.
Sure.
It's a smaller Indian religion.
Yes.
But yeah, like that's where I came from. It's a religion. It doesn't actually believe in God, but they do believe in karma and reincarnation, heaven and hell, supernatural things like that. And that's where I pretty much drew the line and said, okay, well, I can't call myself that anymore.
Right. And I think a strict Jainism, too, has a certain respect for life where, like, if you're an extremist Jain, you will wear, a mask so you don't swallow a bug. I've heard that.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I remember, I know when I knew growing up really ever heard of Jainism, but I remember reading Sam Harris's The End of Faith, where he says, obviously extremist religion is bad. And he says if you're a moderate religious person, that's also bad because you're kind of providing cover for the extremists. And I remember him saying, but if you're an extremist Jain, that might not be such a bad thing. And I'm like, I mean, that's true because the basic tenet of Jainism is nonviolence, which was hilarious to see. I mean, he kind of ignored the fact that there are still these supernatural aspects of it. But it was kind of entertaining that it got it got pressed kind of in this huge book, so that was entertaining.
I'm aware of the religion, but I'm fairly ignorant about it. Is it related to Hinduism and or Sikhism?
I'm sure there's some overlap, but in terms of like the Hindu deities people have heard of, Krishna, Vishnu, those have nothing to do with Jainism. But some of the supernatural aspects of it, I'm sure there's overlap.
Do they employ gurus like the Sikhs, or what are their holy men called?
There are Jain monks, but once you get beyond that, I'm not sure what the overlap is. I knew growing up, I did go to a temple in Chicago anyway, because they built one when I was a kid. So I remember going there pretty often. I actually went back there, maybe a few months ago with my parents, just because they asked me to, because there was something going on there, and I hadn't been there since I was honestly in high school. Mm-hmm. So it's been more than 10 years since I'd been there. And man, this place has grown, so they have kind of their version of Sunday school classes. They have a huge, beautiful building that they're in now. So it's kind of amazing how big it's grown. I mean, I could kind of see why so many people are hooked to it. Just like you might see at a big church. You know, I've been to some mega churches, and I can totally understand why people want to go back there week after week. And it has very little to do with the actual religious beliefs. Mm-hmm. It's just, wow, how do you not want to be in this place?
Those people all have Jane's addiction.
Oh,
there you go.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Golf claps all around.
Beautiful. Did your doubt start earlier? You said at kind of 14 you became a full atheist, and I'm kind of imagining it wasn't like a poof. Did you have like a first doubt that cracked it, or well, you know, really was it
really
just?
It was really just questioning and thinking to myself. My family moved at the time, and I was just wondering why would God ever take me away from my home to this new random location? Because I didn't want to go, and my friends were all back at my old school, you know, so that got me questioning. But then, you know, there were a lot of other questions that popped up, just things like, how come I'm taught about our faith that's supposed to be right, and how come no one else seems to have ever heard of any of this stuff? And they seem to be getting by just fine.
And you're friends with them. Right, so
yeah,
you don't want to condemn them.
And they're good people. So what's the issue there? And by the way, I should point out, Jainism actually doesn't have a creator God. There is no, end-all, be-all God. But, man, if you ask my mom and dad, do you believe in God? They'll say yes, which makes me wonder how much people actually know this Jain theology.
So it's true in every religion that it's not even well known by their own.
Yeah, the adherents don't even know the basics of it necessarily.
Isn't that makes me think of Hinduism, where you know the Hindus will sort of just accept everybody's ideas because look, sure, just invite your God in. But for instance, when the Dalai Lama was accepted into India, many of the people there, Hindu or Buddhist, just sort of gave him that respect, asked him, and wondered to themselves, "Are you God?" And are you Hindu? I mean, what are you really talking about? I think that there's a kind of an all-inclusive nature to some of those Eastern religions that Christianity and the Abrahamic faiths don't encourage as much. I don't know.
Yeah.
One of the things you talk about, as far as coming out, and I think there sometimes is a period when you've found your atheism, you want to tell everyone. I know I went through a bit of it. And you mentioned that atheists often make mistakes in their own skepticism, and that they may not be saying the right thing. What do you mean when you say that?
Well, I think they have to be careful in when they come out. I think some people are like, well, I'm so convinced that I'm right about this whole God thing, which is great, but then they want to tell everybody. Which is a problem if you're, an atheist living under your religious parents' house. Because in, worst case scenario, they may not handle it well. You may be kicked out of the house. You may have to go to church extra because they want to save you. It's like, if you're living under your parents' roof, maybe you want to hold off on announcing your atheism to the world.
Especially at 14?
If you live in a country where that's not socially acceptable, maybe hold on for a little bit. Just use some common sense. I'm all for people coming out. I know it helps everyone when more atheists come out of the closet, but, have some common sense about how you do it and when you do it is all I want to point out.
Right. Do people make any arguments that you're not happy with? Like, what do you think of anti-theism as a subset of atheism?
I understand it, but I guess there's two ways of doing this, which is there's part of me that says I want to, I'm working on issues that even religious people might be able to get on board with. Things like gay marriage, things like LGBT rights. Mm-hmm. I think there are a lot of religious people who are on my side when it comes to that issue, and I would much rather join forces with them and work to make LGBT rights more acceptable, even within the church community. That's part of it. Now, at the same time, I know there are people who are saying, yeah, that's all well and good, but they're still wrong. They're still wrong about God. They're still wrong about all this other stuff, which I agree with, but I think that's a secondary issue at that point. I don't think you're ever going to convince people to lose their faith. You're not going to be able to do that to everybody. So that's really not my focus. And anyone who's seen my work on the website, on YouTube, wherever, I really don't focus too much on philosophy and trying to convince you God isn't real. I'm much more interested in the conversation about, for anyone who says God makes you good, I'll tell you story after story about how religious people have done horrible things. Mm-hmm. Surely religious people can get on board with that. They'll agree to that. So I don't know. My focus, I understand where the anti-theists are coming from, but I don't think you're going to win over that many people by just saying, you're all wrong, I win, screw you all. Like, that's not a very compelling argument. And that's one of the things, like, that's no more of a debate I can have in person with somebody, when it's one-on-one with them. But if I'm trying to make a pitch to the world or something like you guys are doing on this radio show or I'm doing on my website or something, I think it's a lot easier to say, hey, even if you're religious, look at what this high school principal is doing in pushing religion on the students. Surely you think that's wrong, and we could put a stop to that.
Right.
And I think I'm going to be able to win over a lot more people that way. And you know what? Along the way, if they start questioning their faith, hey, that you'll do that on your own time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it sounds like maybe you're saying two things there, that religious pluralism maybe trumps atheism, and that, maybe even anti-theism can practically speaking, I think you're right. I think pluralism trumps the atheism thing on a practical level. I think it's just more feasible to, let's work together with religious people and try to push for social change in the areas we want. And that's not to say I don't want to convince those people that they should just stop believing in God, but I think that's a much more difficult thing to do. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that it's as mean. I mean, I don't care. I don't care if you believe in God or not. I care about what your values are and what you're going to do with those beliefs. And so I want to shape that as much as I can.
Well, you do catch more flies with honey, as they say, and as I was wondering if that was a conscious choice on your part to choose to be the friendly atheist as a branding thing, or are you just friendly by nature, so it worked out like that?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't a branding thing. The only thing I was thinking when I thought of the name Friendly Atheist is most of the atheists I know are pretty nice. So if anyone has to say the website's name, I'm going to make them say Friendly Atheist as opposed to, like, militant.
Yeah.
Not because I thought I was nice and nobody else was. But, if you ever watch atheists on YouTube, especially, I've noticed this, there's a lot of people who are very popular who just kind of yell at the screen, who are just like, everyone except me is an idiot, or everyone except those who agree with me is an idiot. And it's not my style. I don't function that way. I can be around religious people and I'm not going to flip out. So, I don't know. That's just not my nature. So that's the style I guess I've adopted. But believe me, anyone who reads my website too, I've gotten plenty of comments from people who are like, "You wrote this; it wasn't very friendly." Like I can't really avoid that. Any criticism of religion, someone's going to get offended by. Like I can't avoid that.
Well, I think you've largely succeeded in kind of diffusing the anger behind that term atheism. But I do want to ask you where do you stand on that, on the issue of the other euphemisms that we all hear and use, and the fact that atheism seems to carry such a stigma? I kind of fall on the David Silverman side, where I think we need to use the term, and I'll use it to take the sting out of it. But
Yeah.
do you think it's better
As
to
opposed to
avoid it?
humanist or
Free
anything
thinker
else.
and humanist,
Skeptic.
secularist, agnostic, anything. Why can't we all just be
So
atheists?
this goes back to the anti-theism argument to me. I like atheist. I like that word. I'm with Dave Silverman that I would much rather just take that word head on and destroy the stigma. But on a practical level, what am I really more interested in? I would so much rather have people say, I am not religious, and work to kind of push that idea out there. And you know what? If you're doing that, I don't care what you call yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love the American Humanist Association. I think they do incredible work. So I don't care if they call themselves humanists. Like, it's not the first word I would choose, but go for it. There's also, if you've heard of the Bright movement online, and this was years ago, but there was a push to say, let's just call ourselves bright, because we've kind of we've seen the light. And it's not derogatory, because if you believe in the supernatural, you're super. Just very optimistic words. And you know what? There are a lot of people who are like, that's stupid and that's silly. But you know what? They reached a whole new group of people who never would have called themselves atheists or humanists. So good. I'm glad it worked. Same thing for, have you heard of these atheist churches around the country?
Sure. Yeah.
Same thing. I know a lot of people have just a visceral reaction. Like, why do I want to be part of a church-like service if I'm an atheist? I'm an atheist. I want to get away from that. But you know what? I've been to those Sunday assembly gatherings once or twice, and it draws in a whole different group of people than I've ever seen at an atheist meetup or a local group. So it's good for you. I'm glad you found a way to kind of broadcast your atheism, even if you don't want to use that word. I don't care. Good for you. So, I really don't care about the label. It's about what you're doing with it, what it means. So I love the fact that we have more nuns, the people without any religious affiliation. I like that percentage keeps going up every time they do a survey, even though the percentage of atheists isn't very high at all. So, that's good for all of us. And I'll deal with the name thing later. That's less important to me.
You're a pragmatist.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I have to fall on that side, too. I really wish we could all call ourselves atheists. My fear is that there's no unifying solidarity in demographic for voting purposes as the right gets pandered to. But when are atheists and non-believers? Maybe none is what it is. Maybe the nuns, or maybe that's the way we're going to be called.
Right.
But my fear is that there's so many splinter groups that there's no sense for politicians of any one group of non-believers that they should really be respecting our wishes as a 16 to 20% voting demographic.
Absolutely, and if they were smart, they would more openly reach out to it, because that is a growing demographic of voters who go, no one's pandering to the nuns. Come on,
Exactly.
give me a pander.
That's
or
what I
something.
want. I want to be pandered to. Thank you.
Yeah, it's strategically smart. And you would think, without getting too political here, but Republicans know they have evangelicals on their side. But Ted Cruz, he gave his announcement of his presidential campaign at an evangelical Christian school at Liberty University. But you would never see a Democrat candidate even try to do anything similar where they reach out specifically to the godless, the people who are not religious. That would never happen. And part of it is they think it's political liability, which it kind of is, but also because they know, we have no other choice. Right. Who are we going to vote for? So, they don't need to. And I wish there was a way to convince them, a lot more of us would vote, and that goes for any candidate of any party. A lot more of us might vote for you if you actually gave us some lip service, which you never do.
Right. Republican or Democrat in this case.
Exactly. And my understanding is there are probably Republicans in Congress right now who don't believe in God, just like you're seeing Republicans who support gay rights. But they're having a very hard time, getting on board with the gay rights thing because they know it's going to alienate too many people in their base. And it's probably even worse when it comes to being an atheist. I don't know of any Republican who has openly said, I'm an atheist.
There might be
but
one.
But surely someone there, doesn't believe in God, but they're not about to say it anytime soon.
I think it's a lot more common than you think. I'd be willing to bet 2/3 of politicians are are basic non-believers,
or even to have to punt, like our governor punted the evolution question while he was on British TV, and they asked him, and he said, "Well, I want to talk about the economy and jobs." And I thought, I gotta believe he's smart enough to where he's just afraid, and just to crack that, I think has value. Again, you don't need to get people to atheism, but just I don't get the time.
With that governor, I don't know that he's punting on the question because he doesn't want to say he accepts evolution. I think it's because he actually is a creationist and he doesn't want to admit that because he knows how stupid that sounds. But that's the thing. I mean, he not only is he not alone in that, most other politicians who are creationists, they see that as like a badge of honor,
Mm-hmm. So, if you know how stupid it sounds, how can you be that?
Because too many Americans fall under they believe the same thing. So it's not like it's going to hurt them because their base already agrees with them on that issue. So that's disappointing, but it's a political reality. Like, it's Bobby Jindal can say he's a creationist, or a lot of politicians can. James Inhofe can say climate change is a hoax because he knows, like, the people who support him already, they probably agree with him on that, even though it's not what the scientific consensus is.
Yeah, he's simply like, say, they're lobbyists in a way. What do you say to the folks that say, what's wrong with this country is we've just gotten away from God? That's not the problem, and we haven't, because there are so many references to God in this country. The problem isn't we're getting away from it. The problem has nothing to do with religious change. And then I guess my fault, if anyone said that, my question would be, what problems are you talking about? Like, the economy has nothing to do with God. If you're talking about civil rights, that's not a problem. We're making progress on that front. So it's just get them away from the talking point if they say that, and make them explain whatever. Like, if they say marriage, like the family unit is in trouble. Really? Why? Well, gay people are getting married. Yeah, what's the problem with that? Just make them say it out loud, because they're so afraid of saying these things.
That's a good one. What are we going to do about Texas, Hemant?
About what?
About Texas.
With an E, right? I thought you said taxes.
No, Texas. I'm looking at, you had a recent tweet caught the producer's eye here about the Texas baseball coach who made the players attend a Bible study or run an extra 20 minutes. I mean, Texas
this is a high school baseball coach who basically said, "Come join me for Bible study, students." And if you didn't join him, which, by the way, that's illegal to begin with, but if you didn't join him for Bible study, he made you run for like 20 minutes, which is ridiculous. And what's amazing is that the community is overwhelmingly supportive of this coach.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have more information on that I'll be posting soon, but they have been so much in support of this guy. If he was doing this for any other faith but Christianity, I think people would see the point. If he was pushing atheism or Islam or,
Jainism?
Yeah, Jainism or Satanism or something, they would immediately say, let's put a stop to this. But because it's Christianity, everything's okay.
Yeah,
you can push it however you want.
What's the harm?
Yeah, what's the harm?
It's Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
He's got street cred.
Right.
But it just seems like every time you turn around, Texas is piling on with another level of stupidity. I mean, trying to insert Moses into the...
Well, the Texas, the Austin Statesman newspaper had a profile, I believe today, of the lieutenant governor, I believe, David Dewhurst. I hope I'm getting the name right. But whoever the lieutenant governor was, they had a little sidebar where they said this guy painted a picture of the Statue of Liberty one time, and it didn't look right, so he smeared the face up a little bit with the paint he was using, or the watercolors, and all of a sudden he's like, I saw the face of Jesus. And it's like, this guy is in high elected office. This is crazy that they believe that they're actually, like, painting Jesus, or Jesus appeared to him in a painting or something like that. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous that, A, we have some politicians that believe that, and B, other ones who are so disingenuous that they'll pretend to believe, to pander, to stay in office.
I don't think that's this guy's problem. I think he genuinely believes. But, like, in any other country, if you talk to and you say, this is what my politicians believe, they would laugh. They would laugh at you because that's ridiculous.
I feel that pain.
But for some reason, it's totally fine.
We don't. I think people need to travel more. Don't you think if the rednecks in America traveled out of the country and saw how we're viewed, don't you think that would make a difference?
Oh, the perception.
I'm not well traveled.
The perception of the U.S. and other countries. I mean, they just blink and laugh at us.
Wouldn't you think it would open some eyes?
Oh my God, yeah. Send them to like a European country where they have like state religions. The countries have national religions, but no one really takes religion all that seriously.
Right.
I mean, there's a reason, I think, when it came to how many people accepted creationism, believed in creationism, I think we came second from the bottom, and we lost to, like, Turkey. And no other nation had as many creationists as we did, because other countries accept science, and they listen to what the experts who study this stuff for a living have to say. We're the laughingstocks on that end.
The people that do believe in creationism are true wacko cults in those countries. There are some. They're all you can.
They are the fringe in those other places.
Yes, they're the fringe, not the 48% or whatever we have here.
And some of these people have been known to say things like, "Yeah, I know that's a fact, but that doesn't mean it's the truth."
Yes, I've heard things like that. Yeah, what the facts they get in the way of my beliefs.
It's 7:25. You're listening to the Mythicist Milwaukee show here on Mixler.com. Make sure to hit the follow button and chat live.
Right.
And contribute to the conversation as we talk to Hemant Mehta, the friendly atheist, ahead of the Myth Information Conference on April 25th here at the Holiday Inn Riverside.
Right on. At 4700 North Port Washington Road. I think that is either Milwaukee or Glendale.
Get your tickets now at mythicistmilwaukee.com. The Mythicist Milwaukee show also receives support from Craft, the Kenosha-Racine area. Free thinkers serving Kenosha, Racine, and Lake counties, Illinois. What are you going to talk about at the conference, Hemant?
I'm going to talk about how, atheists love to pretend that we know things, right? We all think we're right about God. And that automatically goes to so many other things we believe, like we know the facts. And the truth is we get a lot of things wrong as an atheist community. We believe things that really have no basis in reality. So there's a lot of things we are gullible about. So I'm going to talk about how we are susceptible to the same things we kind of make fun of other people about. So hopefully we can be more cautious about, what we believe online, in the media, and even within our own communities.
Well, that's a great topic because I know I fall victim to it. I'm a know-it-all and an atheist who's, people bring me up on it all the time. I'm the arrogant. If you're the friendly atheist, I'm the arrogant atheist. Brian's the what? Brian's the babbling know-it-all atheist.
It's human nature, but you would just hope that, atheist. As skeptics, we'd have an easier time of understanding this stuff. And no, we make the same mistakes that we often criticize religious people about.
Well, give us some examples here. This is interesting. Give us a teaser of what we might hear.
Or what's a common atheist?
You know what? There was I'm trying to think of the exact quotation, but I remember there was a billboard that went up, and it featured a quotation by maybe like Thomas Jefferson, where he said, this is in no way, the Bible has no basis in the fact, or like this country is not a Christian nation, some variation of that quotation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, if you go to the Thomas Jefferson website, the people who run his archives and all that, they say, no, he never said that. There's nothing even close to that. We know where the rumor comes from, but we have no evidence that he actually said anything like that. And yet an atheist group was using this on a billboard that they paid for, that they put up as look at what Jefferson once said, look at the founding father. And it's you should have checked that before you put it up for everyone to see.
Is that a common misconception that Jefferson said? A lot of atheists attribute that?
Yeah, I want to make sure I have that quotation right, but yeah, I mean, it's a rumor that you could see it a lot online, and you see atheists perpetuating it, just like you see a lot of Christians saying, George Washington loved his Bible, and if you do the research, it's no, he kind of made this oblique reference to God, but it wasn't an evangelical call for everyone to accept and embrace religion or something like that.
Right.
It's people choosing words out of context and not backing them up. And again, we fall for that too. There's another one where we said, how many atheists are in prison? And there's only one study I've ever seen that talks about that, and it's a bad one. Like, it wasn't done properly. So I actually found a way to get more precise information on it as much as I could, and I wrote about that. So I'll be talking about that as well.
So in some ways, like for a non-religious example, you could say that, Christopher Columbus, set out to prove that the world was round, when that is really just part of the American fiction of the life and voyages.
Yeah, that's the traditional rumor about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that again, a quote that was commonly, changed could be the same thing, or shortened, or altered. Yes.
Yeah, and again, you would hope that we're the ones calling out that sort of thing instead of perpetuating it.
Yeah, to be more vigilant and maybe fact checking ourselves.
That's right. That's right.
If we're going to do the same to the...
Yeah, we all need to be like the Snopes people, We all need to be able to say, this is wrong, here's where it's coming from, and here's why you need to stop believing it.
Right. Half true or pants on fire, right?
We need to be skeptical of our skepticism.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a fair way to say it.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, in that end, do you think that there are a lot of atheists out there doing it? That you're seeing this common? Do you have another public example of somebody more famous as opposed to kind of a random billboard?
Yeah, here's one I've heard repeatedly. There's a story that I've seen repeated. I was just reading a book this weekend that quoted George Bush, the first one, when he was running for president or something, who said something to the effect of, I don't think atheists should be considered citizens. I don't think that's right. And I've seen that quotation a lot on atheist websites. I've seen it in news articles that, this president or the future president said atheists shouldn't be considered citizens. But no one ever tries to figure out where that quotation came from. And the truth is, it came from one guy who was a reporter who happened to be a very outspoken atheist who said George Bush said this to him. There was no recording. There was no witness to hear this. And that's it. And so I'm not saying it's a lie. But if, some Christian reporter said, oh, yeah, Barack Obama said Christians aren't really Americans, of course we would be like, yeah, right, prove it. Give us the recording. But for some reason, when George H.W. Bush said atheists aren't citizens, people just believed it. And no one has ever asked, or no one has ever seen, an audio recording, a video recording. No one else was there when this happened. It's just the word of someone who very clearly has a bias. It's just one of those things. We should be questioning that a lot more than just accepting it.
So atheists are humans too, and are as susceptible as to confidence.
I know. Unfortunately, we are. Unfortunately, we're human.
We're cool humans, though.
Let's hope so. Right.
Part of the problem that we face, Hemant, as we are trying to organize community groups and call to action, part of what we go through is apathy, even on the part of folks who will come out to a meetup.
Oh, yeah.
They want to come out and know that they're not alone, and they want to sit in a room and talk and feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But they don't want to do anything. They don't want to even come out publicly. They don't want to show up for an event. They don't want to throw down with the volunteer time. They don't want to really be making a splash at all. Talk to us about why it's important to attend a speech by a Hemant Mehta or to come to a Myth Information Conference.
Right. Well, look, I think here's why it's important. Part of it is, like you said, it's just meeting other people who share your beliefs and to know that you're not alone. And that in itself could be a big deal just right there. But again, it's once you realize, okay, I'm not alone. I am an atheist. I'm open about it. I'm not alone. That's nice. But if you're not going to do anything with that, who cares? What good does it do for any of us? And I would say the same for religious people. That's nice you believe the Bible, but what does it compel you to do? If you're using it to, exclude LGBT people and treat them like crap, maybe that's not a religion worth even bothering to look into, I think it's important because you could show people that the stigma is based on fear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look, we're atheists and we're compelled because we think this is the only world we live in and there is no afterlife. I want to make the world a better place. So let me start by volunteering. Let me start by donating money to certain charities and by coming together with the community and helping out, doing whatever it is, a blood drive, whatever. And you can't do that unless you know there are other people out there who think the same way. So that's where it's helpful. So do they have to see me speak? I mean, I'm going to say yes because they should. But even if they don't, I mean, just like getting together once a month or something and saying, yeah, I'm an atheist and I want to use it to do something in my society. That's powerful. I remember going to a church once, and this was like a hip emerging church. And I was like, what is it about this church that makes them so different from anyone else? And one of the pastors gets up on stage and he says, let me show you the headline from our local newspaper today. And it said like 25% of the people in our community live below the poverty line. And everyone was silent. And he's like, what are we as a church going to do to fix that? It's like, wow, like that's a great question. And that's pretty incredible if your church has the ability to do anything about the poverty line and helping people who might live under it. I wish there were an atheist equivalent of that. We don't have the manpower that they do. Mm-hmm. But maybe if they can do something about it, whether it's, making sure they go to their local politicians' offices and lobbying for the change that they want to see. We have the ability to do that. But we don't usually, because we don't know how to. We aren't organized enough. I mean, that sort of stuff, churches are really good at doing, some of them. We are really bad at it. So when you have an opportunity to meet other people in your community, like you guys are doing with this conference at the end of the month, it's a chance to start a conversation and start figuring out, okay, what's our next step? Mm-hmm. There's like a bunch of us here. What can we do to change things? What can we do to make sure the media takes notice? Like, look at who we are and what we're trying to do and how we're fixing this, because that helps create change.
Yeah, I agree. And eventually, you're right. I think that communities right now, atheists are a lot. We've got to get people out of the closet, get a community going. But yeah, and most of us seem to be in that stage. But once that's established, then yeah, I think that's the next step. Then what? I mean, you can't.
Yeah,
really,
and that's not to say that there isn't room for having those debates and having the discussion. Some of the best groups I know, the ones that are the largest and that are the most successful, I think, in that sense of the word, they will do we'll have a week where we just have a discussion at a restaurant or a bar. The following week, we're going to do a volunteering event, and you could bring your whole family there. And then the following week, we're going to try to have a speaker. And then the next week, we're going to host a blood drive. They're doing so many different things that include a room for discussion and debate, which I know some people love exclusively, but they're mixing it up with social events and volunteer events and charity drives, and that's amazing.
Now, what's your personal experience with smaller grassroots groups? I know you've served on, Secular Coalition and Foundation Beyond Belief, and some of these bigger groups now that you're more of an established name. Did you start by being a blogger and just kind of doing it on your own?
No, I started a group at my college, and it was small, and we tried to do that mix that I'm talking about, but we weren't very good at it. The college atheist groups I've seen today are so much better at it. Man, they have their stuff together. They are trying out all sorts of things. Their organizations, administrators at their colleges know who they are. They know they can turn to these groups when they're trying to get together some interfaith or interdialogue sort of event, which is fantastic. So I love so many of these local groups, the campus groups. They do a really nice job of mixing it up, working with religious groups on campus, by the way, to spur debate. They'll do something like, we're going to host a debate on the existence of God between us, and we're co-sponsoring it with a Christian group. And by the way, we're also doing a canned food drive for people who want to come attend. That's the price of admission or something like that. Or we're going to do some sort of bake sale, but all the money is going to charity. Mm-hmm. So they've done a nice job of mixing it up and really getting people engaged and active.
Do you see the discussion evolving, not just on the topic of does God exist, but what about the Indiana law or some more current events and whether or not this was a good thing?
I'm sure they are doing that. I've seen some really interesting debates on, is religion good for society? Forget if it's right or wrong or true or not, but just is it good? Because I think you could argue that one both ways, you know? There's a lot of reason religion is bad for society, but in some instances it can be a really powerful positive force too. So those are really interesting discussions. But yeah, a lot of these campus atheist groups, they've been on the front line when it comes to defending LGBT rights. Mm-hmm. They've defended free speech. Things like some groups have defended Ayaan Hirsi Ali, being invited to be like a commencement speaker, or just coming to their university, standing up for Draw Muhammad Day. I know that gets that rubs some people the wrong way, but they'll be on the front lines of the free speech issue on these things.
Sure, and sometimes having the discussion, even if agreement isn't reached, is part of breaking this taboo. Because
and isn't that kind of the function of college? That's what you should be doing at college. Let's have these tough, uncomfortable discussions with people who disagree with you sitting right across from you. And, yeah, you're not going to come to a conclusion all the time, but let's hash out what the differences really are, where we can come to consensus. Those are good things, and college is such a good environment for that to happen in.
And speaking of controversy, can you tell us the story of what happened of your famous attempt to sell your soul on eBay?
Yeah, I mean, basically, long story short, like I said, I grew up a Jain. I never went to a Christian church growing up. And so the auction that I did on eBay said, you could send me wherever you want me to go to a religious service, and I'll go for every $10 you bid to one service, thinking it would never go past like $10, $20. But the winner ended up paying more than $500 for me to go to a Christian church basically every Sunday for a year.
Wow.
But the deal, yeah, I did not like that. But the deal we made was, he said, "Why?" I was afraid of that, and I actually had to edit the eBay auction to say, look, whatever you give me, I'm donating to the Secular Student Alliance. That's so that if someone has like $1 million, it's all going to an atheist group, just so you know. But the pastor who won, he's like, I don't want you to go for 50 weeks. How about you just go to 10 and go to all different ones, go to all different churches. He'll pick them out for me, because he wanted me to get a flavor of different types of Christian churches, because he knew them all, and I didn't. And he said, in exchange, since we're lowering the amount, you write about your experience on my ministry's website, about what you liked, what you didn't like, and we'll call it a deal. And it was an awesome learning experience for me. I thought the comment threads, which is always, that's always scary, internet comment threads, but I thought the people who commented were unbelievable. Christians were like, yeah, I don't like it when my church does that. And atheists were saying things like, yeah, I didn't like that about my church when I went. That's why I left. And they were having a good discussion about what churches are doing right and wrong. So it was just a really great discussion all around. And, as bad as it could have been, it ended up really good.
That's a fascinating solution. I did not know that it ended like that. So
yeah, and by the way, I really I've seen some college groups since then. They will do things like a soul for a donation to charity. So like $10, you'll have a copy of a certificate to our soul, and we're going to go to a local church. And then, the following week, we're going to have a discussion about it, which we hope you come to. So we'll go to your church if you want us to, but we're gonna have a discussion.
So you ended up at 10 different denominations of Christianity, more or less?
Yeah, it wasn't even necessarily different denominations, but I went to like an evangelical megachurch. I went to a black church on the south side of Chicago. I went to a guy's living room, because that's how big his church was. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's a lot of different types of churches, though they were mostly non-denominational, evangelical, things like that.
Yeah, those are the most common around now. It seems like the Protestant standby faiths. I don't know what you really know about it now. I'm not coming from that background, but things were a lot different in the country in the 60s and 70s. There was not this kind of creationism. Much more liberal thinking in the mainstays, the Methodists, the Congregationalists, the Baptists of the North. And that's kind of gone away in favor of these big evangelical churches. What do you attribute to the attraction there? As we see the numbers of believers going down, we see the numbers of fundamentalists going up, and they seem to be congregating in droves in these giant, and I call them prairie churches, because you know what I'm talking about. There's that one in Willow Springs, I think, that takes up 3 towns, and we've got them all over the place in cornfields in Wisconsin. Why do people? Why do people gravitate to these churches as opposed to the old ones? And how are they growing in a time when the religion is basically dying slowly?
two reasons, I think. One is if you've ever been to those churches, it's like you're part of a larger community. You are part of, like, you see a big show. The sermons are incredible. They're inspiring.
Yeah, rock bands.
Oh, yeah, like the rock bands are there at the beginning. The sermons are the speakers are great. You could literally live your life within that church bubble, and you would be okay because they got you covered. If you want to work for them, you can work for them. If you want a place to read, have coffee, discuss things, there's a place for you there. Volunteer activities, they got you covered. Schooling, they got you covered. I mean, so they could take care of you from start to finish. That's one thing. But the other reason is they really do feel like they are under attack from society. They feel like that they are being persecuted. Like even this Indiana ridiculous law, they think they're the ones under attack here as Christians. And what happens when you're under attack? You want to band together with other people. I actually talk about this sometimes when I speak to groups, which is one of the reasons you see such a rise of people who are non-religious over the past decade had to do with the fact that George W. Bush was in office for 8 years, and there was a reaction to his, like, conservative Christianity mixed in with politics. People wanted little to do with that, and there's a backlash. And we're seeing it with President Obama now. Like, why did the Tea Party start up now? It's because they had a reaction to what they perceived to be his, like, liberal views. I don't even think he's that liberal, but
Socialist
like
agenda,
when
right.
when you see someone and it's not going in the direction you want, there's a pushback to it. So why are these evangelical churches growing? Because they think they're under attack. They want to join a big, powerful church and meet like-minded people. So I'm not surprised it's growing, but I think if you look at maybe the number of churches, they're going to diminish. The number of big churches are going to like coalesce because there's a lot fewer of them that are going to be able to say, like, stand up and say, nope, we still don't think gay people should have rights.
That's a good answer and a different perspective. I usually ask guests that, and I like that take on that. It's a little bit different. It's 7:45, 7:46, and you are listening to the Mythicist Milwaukee Show and guest Hemant Mehta, who will be speaking at the Myth Information Conference coming up on April 25th. Get your tickets now at mythicistmilwaukee.com. It's time for Myth of the Day. Brian, take it away. It's Easter.
Yes, it is. And the myth of the day, and we are asking a question. Are Easter eggs uniquely Christian? The answer is no. The egg is a symbol of rebirth and is featured in many ancient mythologies and various myths. The egg, like many other ancient symbols and practices, was taken and infused from earlier religions and infused into Christianity. Here's a quick list of some religions that use egg symbology. The ancient Sumerians decorated ostrich eggs in gold and silver and were commonly placed in graves, going as far back as 5000 BCE. The ancient Egyptians believed that the sun god Ra hatched from an egg. They also thought the sun itself was an egg, again, about the same time period. In the Zoroastrian religion, about 2000 BCE, the supreme deity, Ahura Mazda, created an egg and placed all of the good gods in it. In Hinduism, the shell of the egg represents the heavens, the egg white, the air, and the yolk, the earth, as far back as 2,800 years BCE.
It's a pretty obvious metaphor for life and rebirth.
It sounds like one of the longest
egg.
traditions I know. Eggs, we like eggs. We like to paint them.
But did it come before the chicken?
I'm not rich enough to put gold on them.
We've got a few more minutes. We like to ask all of our guests about mythicism. We are, of course, the Mythicist organization here. And lately we've been talking to mythicists, specifically Carrier and D.M. Murdoch and Fitzgerald, and people who are actually mythicists. You're the first atheist I've had on, and that's fun for a change. What is your view on the mythicist position? Are you a guy who pays any attention to that? Do you think Jesus exists in some form?
I pay very little attention to it, so I'm the wrong guy to ask.
Well, I can ask you do you have an opinion on that? Do you think any of the biblical characters were real at all, or do you think probably they were?
You know what? I don't have an informed opinion on that, so I'm reluctant to say anything. But the truth is, look, I don't believe in the supernatural aspects of all of this. So even if they were actual beings, even if all of that were, it had some basis in reality, I don't think it would change what I think about religion, or, because I still don't think, a dead man came back to life on Easter Sunday or anything like that. Like, that to me doesn't make any sense. So right there, the conversation's kind of over for me.
Yeah, that's
yeah. So it's for you. It's more the outcome than anything else. And we appreciate your ducking the question, not because you're afraid to answer it, because you don't feel qualified in the same way.
Right. I mean, this is not, like I said, I don't talk about philosophy on my site. I don't study the historicity of the Bible like someone like Richard Carrier might. Mm-hmm. So it's an irrelevant point for most of the things I talk about.
And you didn't come from the tradition either, so you don't have any indoctrination from childhood. I forgot that when I asked the question. Like, most of us were at least brought up, even if people weren't religious in America, their parents paid lip service to being a Christian in name, and so.
Right.
Well, most of us do. We have that attachment to that myth arc, so we know what we're talking about here.
Yeah, but we appreciate the honesty.
Yeah, no, and like I say, it's nice to talk to a guy who embraces that title of atheism.
And it's good that you don't want your podiatrist to just decide that he has an opinion on your brain tumor, right?
Right.
Because he looks at feet. Right. Okay.
Anything else you want to touch on before we let you go? It's getting to be the end here. What's foremost on your mind? Any of these wacky foreign or current events got you in trouble?
Man, no, the current events can go on forever. You know what? One thing I have noticed is, I was talking about this with you guys before we started, is I've had a lot of messages from people who kind of see my YouTube videos, and I find this fascinating. There are people who know me because of my website, Friendly Atheist, and they're all older people. And the funny thing is the YouTube channel, the people who recognize me on YouTube have no idea that I write a blog. They're all younger. They're all under 25. They only know me from YouTube, and it's just fascinating how quickly that has changed. It used to be, I guess, when I started blogging 7 or 8 years ago, that was the way to get your ideas across. That is what everyone was doing, and that has shifted so quickly to YouTube. And I think podcasting also is the next kind of way that people are going as well. And I'm just amazed at how my blog is going to become irrelevant very soon, which means YouTube is if you want to get your message out, that's where you got to go.
Is it hard also to come up with a blog every damn day? Is that really get tiresome after a while, or are the topics?
I wish I could tell you yes. It doesn't, because there's always a story about people doing some crazy stuff with religion. So I'm never at a lack of stories to write about. And it also helps that I'm writing about current events and not philosophy or something that, okay, I've done it, now time to move on,
Where's the, I'm going to put you on the spot here, pick the state that's the biggest problem. What's the most backward state when it comes to this?
Texas is probably going to give anyone a run for their money. Because it's so big, because the politicians feel so strongly about religion too. So that's probably the biggest problem. All their elected officials basically go Republican. They decide textbooks that a lot of publishing companies cater to. So that's probably the biggest problem out there. But believe it's not like there's not a problem in so many other states. There are politicians in every state, it seems, who want to merge church and state, who want to find a way to legislate their religion.
Do you think they want to legislate their religion because they really believe it, or do you think that they're really, really duplicitous and they're really about mind control? They really know that this will keep their constituency and the masses in general undereducated, in underpaying jobs, voting against their self-interest to keep these people in their power structure?
I don't think they're smart. I don't think they're that smart to do that. I think they really believe this stuff themselves, and they feel like if I want to make a better society, then using my morality and Bible-based morality, that's the way to do it. They really believe that. I don't think they're so smart to think, well, this is a strategic move that'll placate the base. And, they're not thinking like that. And I would hope they're not.
Right?
Yeah, I would hope they're not thinking like that, because how awful would that be? But no, I think they really believe it, and that's the problem.
Do you get a chance to address children at all in your work? What's got us distressed here is the Childhood Evangelical Fellowship that goes around with good news clubs, indoctrinating kids.
I mean, I would never do that myself, even given the opportunity. But I will tell you, I've gotten a lot of messages from young people under 18 who have seen me on YouTube, and they're like, I've been struggling with my doubts. I've had these questions for a while, and your videos have helped me kind of figure out what it is I believe. So that's great to hear. I mean, I hope they keep questioning. I hope they keep looking for the answers, you know?
That's got to be gratifying.
Feel good. That's got to feel good.
But, I mean, I have no desire to speak to, like, a room full of third graders and say, here's why God doesn't exist.
What's wrong with third graders, man?
I'm like, it's too young. I want you to ask questions, but I want you to think about this stuff first, and then you can come to me, and then you can question this. Like, if you want to have a discussion, great. But I've said this when I taught at a high school, too, because kids kind of knew that I did this atheism stuff. I wouldn't have these conversations with them. It just wasn't my place as a teacher to do it. So I'm like, go figure this out on your own. If you're an atheist and you want to tell me you're an atheist, that's very nice, but, like, go do your homework. That's the conversation I want to have with you right now.
The conversation I think that can be had with kids is to teach them good scientific principles. To teach the third grader
Let me teach
what
you to think
can
for
know about
yourself.
science. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, this is what these people are circumventing, is the child's ability to think for themselves, and isn't it incumbent on us to try to counter that with some rescue attempt of our own and kind of drive a wedge in between these young minds and the people who would corrupt them, whether these people think they're saving their souls or whether they're creating automatons to pigeonhole into jobs. Either way, it's how does this advance society by letting children be indoctrinated into bad science?
Yeah. No, I understand that. And that's a political thing that we got to talk about, where we want to make sure these kids are learning how to ask the right questions and how to discover the truth, at least as much as you can with evidence. And if they're not learning how to do that, that's scary.
That's a good point, yeah. And I think that's the way to do it. I can appreciate you kind of, again, it's staying away for the kids. It's tougher, it's younger. We really hope that you come out to the Myth Information Conference on April 25th, and to meet Hemant. And as far as Hemant goes, we're hoping, Hemant, we can introduce you to. We have two kind of tentative folks that may come out. Michelle Thaler, who's a NASA scientist and part of the Mars Project, is tentative. She's
that's awesome.
But not a no. That's good. And Killa Priest from the Wu-Tang Clan, if you go way back like I do, they reached out. They're not a yes. They're not a no. But so we've got some salesmanship to do, I suppose.
You a big Wu-Tang?
That's awesome.
If you know them, call them.
Yeah, no, I do not. But I hope people come out. I hope they give it I mean, even if you're not familiar, I think it's worth just coming out to check out meet the people in your community who are skeptics and stuff. That's a good thing. So hopefully I'll see people there. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. We're really excited to have you.
Yeah, it's 3 weeks to go. Get your tickets now. It's mythicismmilwaukee.com. Follow the links. Get your tickets. It's $30 to hear three great speakers and contribute to the first ever secular conference in Milwaukee, where, of course, we have a ridiculous black hole of secularism, as producer Sean Frasick likes to say. It's just steeped in Catholicism and old German Lutheranism here, and even though we're in the north, we feel kind of Bible belted, don't we, Brian?
Yeah, come join us. Release the buckle one notch.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Belt analogy. Sometimes I'm slow, but I got this one.
We like the architecture here, though. I mean, we have churches. It's a city of spires, Gothic spires when you come into Milwaukee. I actually enjoy that.
Right.
I think that all churches should be instantly turned into museums. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, no. I think they will be over time, because what else are you going to do with all that space when people leave? And if you go anywhere beyond the U.S., there are some beautiful churches that function as museums, and they're beautiful.
Agreed. But we the best reason to come to Milwaukee in the near future is to see Hemant in person. It's going to be great. We're going to have a blast. So come.
I'm looking forward to it.
He's the friendly atheist. You can find him at it's pathos.com, right? The blog site that Hemant does.
It's pathos.com.
And on YouTube.
And on YouTube. Yeah, Pathos. If you go to Pathos, search Friendly Atheist. It's YouTube, The Atheist Voice. And if they'd like to listen on the podcast, it's friendlyatheistpodcast.com.
Very good.
You heard it here. This has been the Mythicist Milwaukee Show. Join us next week for Kenneth Humphreys. We are going to move to 2 o'clock in the afternoon if you're listening live, as he is calling from England, and we don't want to keep him up until the middle of the night. Thanks again to Hemant Mehta for joining us, and we will see you all next week. Thanks, Hemant.
Thanks, everyone.